2026 Planning Committee meeting of the Contra
Recording
Costa
in progress.
Transportation Authority. We are calling the meeting of the Planning Committee to order, and please give your attention to this short video.
This meeting will be conducted as a Zoom webinar to allow for public participation and comments. The Contra Costa Transportation Authority does not condone hate speech in any form. We continually strive to make life better for all members of our community and create an atmosphere where everyone feels a sense of safety and belonging. We ask that anyone who wishes to speak does so with civility, respect, and kindness for others. Public speakers will have up to 3 minutes to speak. The chair will call upon public speakers at the appropriate time. Each public speaker is requested to state their name and organization, but providing such information is voluntary. Public speakers who wish to speak in person should submit a public speaker card to the clerk. Public speakers participating by Zoom who are wishing to speak should use the raise hand feature or dial *9 if participating via phone. Written public comments received in accordance with the teleconferencing special notice on the meeting agenda will be provided to the members. If authors of any written correspondence would like to speak during the meeting, they should raise their hand or submit a public speaker card. Thank you for participating in a meeting of the Contra Costa Transportation Authority.
Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, I know that you are doing multiple rolls, but when you are settled, could you please call roll?
Commissioner Armstrong?
Here.
Commissioner Carlson? Commissioner Xavier?
Here.
Vice Chair Meadows?
Here.
And Chair Obringer?
I am here as well. Thank you very much.
All right, we have all commissioners present except for Ken Carlson is absent.
Okay. Thank you. So the next item on our agenda is public comment. And so I don't see any members of the public here physically. Madam Clerk, do we have anyone from the public online who wishes to speak on an item that is not on the agenda?
We have no hands raised and there has been no written public comment.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, I'm going to make sure it's clear that we're concluding the public comment period. Okay, so the next item on the agenda is the consent calendar. Are there any items that any members of the Planning Committee would like to pull from our consent calendar? Okay, I don't hear anything. I'm seeing head shaking no. Is there any public comment, Madam Clerk, on the consent calendar?
No public comment.
Thank you. Okay, closing the public comment on the consent calendar, bringing it back to the committee. Is there a motion for approval of the consent calendar?
Move to approve the consent calendar.
Thank
Second.
you. Okay, so that was a motion by Commissioner Xavier and a second by Commissioner Armstrong. Could you please call the vote for us?
Commissioner Armstrong?
Yes.
Commissioner Carlson? Commissioner Xavier?
Aye.
Vice Chair Meadows?
Yes.
Chair Obringer?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously with Commissioner Carlson absent.
Thank you very much. All right. So we are now moving on to the regular agenda items. So we have regular agenda item 4A, that's circulation of the draft fiscal year 2026-27 Congestion Management Agency budget. And I see Matt Kelly is already in place and ready to make your presentation. Welcome.
Thank you, Chair Obringer. Good afternoon, Planning Committee members. Matt Kelly, Director of Planning here at the Authority. Happy to be here to talk about our draft fiscal year 26-27 budget for the Congestion Management Agency. And I'll get to the main point of why we're bringing this to you today ahead of the actual final budget that comes to you in July. So just first, I'm going to just give a little history, as I like to do in these types of situations, because there is a lot of history here at the authority and to our role as CMA. And just want to make sure everybody understands. So CCTA is the designated congestion management agency for Contra Costa County. We are designated under state CMP congestion management program legislation. That was under Prop 111, passed way back in 1991. This role of CMA is in addition to our roles as the Measure J administrator and as the transportation planning agency for Contra Costa County. So just one of our three primary hats that that really the planning department takes on. So the CMA function has three primary areas of focus: growth management and regional planning. We kind of group growth management and regional planning together when it comes to the budget. And then congestion management is kind of the main role as a CMA, and then development and implementation of regional policies. And that goes back to the Sustainable Communities Strategy, where we have the responsibility of implementing the Contra Costa portion of the Sustainable Communities Strategy, which is basically the RTP that is adopted by MTC. So we have a lot of roles in terms of managing local congestion, but also and delivering local projects, but also managing activities at the regional level on behalf of our local jurisdictions. So the CMA budget supports a variety of staff activities within the planning department. Our draft fiscal year 26-27 budget does include funding for 3 planning positions: Colin, myself, and a currently vacant position that is in the process of being backfilled due to staff retirement. So this budget does fund all 3 positions, even though we have been working with just 2 positions over most of the last fiscal year. So I'll just go through some activities that you might recognize that this budget does fund. And one is GMP compliance, so making sure all 20 jurisdictions, including the county, are in compliance with the growth management program, and making sure you all are receiving your return to source funds from the measure. CTP development, as you all know, we've been working on our CTP for the last year and a half or so, and really solidifying the vision for 25 years in the future in Contra Costa and what transportation and the county might look like. Making sure we are keeping our travel demand model up to date, maintain and providing local support for users of our travel demand model, and then all the technical procedures that you all as local agencies are required to participate in. We're always in the process of updating those guidelines and procedures. Action plan development, so when we go and work on the sub-regional action plans for routes of regional significance. RTPC coordination, so working with all 4 sub-regions on a variety of efforts, and then a couple of big items that we're working on right now. So implementing the Measure J programs, a big one, or big 2, are programs 12 and 13, TLC and PBTF. As you may know, we're about to do a call for projects. That is one primary way we implement Measure J and allocate funds to local agencies to build projects. So we're really excited to be able to do the 3rd cycle of those TLC PBTF grants this fiscal year. And then we're really getting going on our corridor planning efforts, including San Pablo Avenue, the Richmond Parkway, and some trail planning efforts, including the Iron Horse to Contra Costa Canal Trail Connector. As far as our CMA activities, those are focused on updating our congestion management program, which we do every 2 years.
Excuse me, I'm so sorry, but are you advancing your
You know,
slides?
I'm not, but I probably should be. I was going to talk about all this stuff on this page, so, sorry. I worked on my slides a week ago and then worked on my notes today.
No worries, we just want to make sure we weren't missing something.
You're not, but I'll try and get through this so we have some slides you can look at. So we also have our congestion management strategies where we're actively working on how we can address congestion in our corridors. So we've had our SR4 vision study, our Innovate 680 effort, and other corridor or other congestion studies where we're actively focused on coming up with solutions. We are implementing MTC planning and programming activities. So that call for projects I just mentioned on the Measure J side will be coordinated with the OBAG call for projects. So we're at the same time we're implementing Measure J by allocating project funds. We'll also be implementing the Plan Bay Area RTP goals by funding the OBAG grants. And then just a lot of regional coordination where we're working on the RTP development, working with BCDC, working with the Air District, and updating all of our PDA investment strategies. So a lot is going on that slide. So now to get into the budget. So growth management and regional planning. This is funded directly by Measure J from our 3% for administration. Just some highlights of what is included in this year's budget is our overall regional planning and technical support. And this is where we support our local agencies, and also providing grant application support, things like that. We have strategic communications. So planning gives some funds to Lindy and her external affairs department, and they in turn assist us in our plans and the outreach portion of that. A lot of times they're directly coordinating with the consultants we hire to work on projects and making sure that the outreach is done according to our kind of specifications and being coordinated with the rest of our outreach efforts. We do biannual monitoring of the level of service of our CMP network. So we split that between our CMP and our CMA and GMP funding. As I mentioned earlier, we're doing lots of corridor planning. There's some seed money there to start some more corridor planning efforts, and then maintenance of our travel demand forecasting model. On the congestion management side, you'll see that there's a bit more funding on, or a bit more efforts going on this side. And I'll show you in a minute how things kind of do shift from year to year from the CMA to the GMP side. So under the CMA this year, we are mostly wrapping up the countywide plan, but we still have the EIR ahead of us. So there is $500,000 in the budget, but much lower than what was in the budget last year due to the CTP winding up. Some more strategic communications contribution to Lindy's group. The other half of that CMP level of service monitoring. Then we've got some bike and ped plan implementation items that we're working on this year, including we're constantly working on Vision Zero implementation around the county. We have a micromobility study that we just issued an RFP for, and that we'll be managing over the next fiscal year. It should be mostly completed this fiscal year. That's really intended to help our local agencies and their micromobility goals. to make sure that everybody is on the same playing field when it comes to working with micromobility providers, that everybody's under a common use agreement and has a local model ordinance that they can adopt, and just, making sure there is a consistent countywide framework or program that governs micromobility, so it's not the wild, wild west as it has been in the past. We have managed to provide funding for our big data subscription. Last year it was questionable because we had all those other expenditures for the CTP. We were worried we might not be able to fit it in this time, but we have. We're hoping we can grow that, the users of that subscription, so we'll be going out and marketing that through various groups to get hopefully all of your cities on board. We've lost a few cities this year. We picked up a few, but we really want to impress upon folks, and this is Streetlight, is the name brand of the big data platform that we're using. We really want to impress upon the local agencies the value that can add to work that you're doing, whether you're using it for putting together grants or doing traffic studies or looking at conditions around schools, or if you're just trying to tell a story to your external affairs department is trying to tell a story to the public. It's really important and really valuable for pulling out good transportation data and being able to, to tell a story. And just so you know, in terms of the big data, we are hoping this will be our last year that we are paying directly into Streetlight for our own subscription. Colin is working with a consortium of the other CMAs around the Bay Area to develop a region-wide big data subscription that we would then pay into and hopefully pay at a lot lower rate than we're paying today. So that $450 that you see in the budget really is intended to get us to the point where that regional data subscription exists. We think that's about 6 or 8 months out. So we're working with Streetlight to extend our current subscription to get us to the point where the regional subscription would take over.
And so, Matt, before you go on, do
Yeah.
you mind if we do questions during this? Since
Sure.
it's kind of long.
This
and
is
I
our
don't wanna
only
lose
item,
my
so
questions.
might as well.
So I have 2 that are related to this slide. Does anybody else? I'm just making sure Erin is still awake. No, I'm just kidding. I'm teasing you, Erin. No, okay, so my 2 questions were, I heard you mention that you lost some agencies and then you brought on some agencies with one of the programs. So was that just, can you tell us more about that? Because maybe they're some of our agencies or agencies within the RTPCs that we serve on. So could you just give us some more detail about that, please?
Yeah, I don't have a list of the statuses today. Colin may be able to help me out, but yeah, we did lose for various reasons, whether folks weren't no longer wanted to pay in because maybe they didn't feel they had projects that would be supported by it, or they didn't feel like they were getting the value. We've been trying to build that value. I think it's a variety of reasons, Colin, but I will say we did lose Concord this past year.
Okay, well, I was curious. I mean, you should let me know.
Yeah, we do work through staff, so maybe it is worth elevating to at least the planning directors, and actually we have a planning directors meeting next week. We could inform them we were going to go to the City County Engineers Association, let them know. Yeah, we really want to get the word out because we're charging a nominal cost to the cities to participate, and potentially cities could get hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of value for, the dues that we're charging, which for a large city, I think is around, Colin, 40,000 for a year. it ranges depending on the size of the city. But yeah, we'd really like Concord back. I don't want to call out individuals. We'd like everybody
Well, I was
to
curious.
to participate. Yeah, so we've been having training the last couple of months, and we're really we're inviting everybody, even folks that aren't paying in, so they can see what types of analysis are available. We've asked for what people would like to analyze, and then bringing that into the training. So we've been really providing training that really is focused on what the cities may use streetlight for. And there's customizable training. So yeah, we're hopeful to get everybody back on board.
Okay. And that leads into just my second question quickly. So for example, as I'm thinking about the congestion management project with the streetlight syncing, that's going on in the 3 areas of the county, I'm just wondering, is that the kind of project, to be able to show the community? Because I was trying to think about how do I share with folks, because I get complaints all the time about, stop and go, and I'm excited about this project, but it's kind of hard for me to tell the story, or our staff. So is this the kind of thing that could be used to help illustrate, so people can see through some graphics and things, the change that's anticipated to come?
Yeah, so I'll just give an example. It's not about the smart signals, though that is a good example of when the smart signals come online. You could be using Streetlight to tell the before and after study.
Okay, great.
So we just asked Streetlight as an example to run an analysis of Bollinger Canyon Road at the Iron Horse Trail overcrossing to look at the amount of delay that was occurring before that pedestrian bridge went in and what it looks like now. I just got that the other day, or I would have already shared it. And it does, it does visually demonstrate the amount of delay that has gone away for vehicles since that bridge has gone in. So that is the type of story you can tell. Before and after studies are really good uses of the streetlight data.
Okay, thank you. So if nobody has any other questions, please carry on, Matt.
Okay. Still on the data topic, as you know, we are trying to be a data-driven organization. We've been building out a data dashboard to support our countywide data center, and this is funding there to continue that program. And then support mainly for local agencies and their implementation of SB 743 and dealing with vehicle miles traveled. And we're constantly updating our guidance related to that. We're going out to Brentwood later this month to do kind of a learning session with their council on what VMT means to them. So just making sure we have budget to maintain that support there. So then we wanted to highlight the activities that are actually being grant funded and reimbursed. They're included in the budget, but but we also include the revenue. So we're finishing up our community-based transportation plans. We're having our last countywide town hall next month. And so there's $100,000 out of the $450,000 budget remaining on that, which is reimbursed by MTC using REAP funds. There is the countywide emergency evacuation study, which we're in the process of retaining a consultant for that. So we've budgeted most of the budget for that effort for next fiscal year. But that is entirely reimbursable by Caltrans Sustainable Community Planning Grant. Then there's the San Pablo Avenue Safety and Access Project, which is underway now and will be mostly completed this fiscal year and is entirely reimbursed by Regional Measure 3. And you may know last year at this time, the Smart Signals program was on this list, but we've now completed the planning effort for that. And as you know, probably it's gone on to the projects department where it's actually going into construction. So it's nice to see things move from here into that phase. Okay, so just a summary of our budget. So out of a $6.6 million budget, sorry, the fiscal year is wrong on that line. This is the 26-27 budget. The total for this year is $6.6 million. 1.4 of that is for the GMP function. That funding comes from Measure J. What we are mostly focused on today is talking about the CMA function. That budget is $5.2 million. It is mostly reimbursed by other sources. We get money from the Surface Transportation Program, from MTC. We get state planning, programming, and monitoring funds, PPM funds, and then OBAG funds and other MTC sources make up a majority of that. That leaves us, out of that 5.2 million, that leaves us with about 950,000, a gap. And that's where we come to our 20 local agencies and annually ask for a local contribution. So for this year, that amount is 947,000. I just wanted to give you an idea of what that looks like in comparison to past years and especially to last year. It's about $500,000 less, about 35% less, almost 36% less. So that is going to reduce our request for the local contribution. But just wanted to point out that over the years, you can see how the budget has shifted between, being GMP heavy and CMA light to more of a CMA heavy and GMP light. And that is kind of the cyclical nature of what we do here at the authority. When we're working on our action plans, those are heavily funded by GMP, and same with a lot of our CTP. Now we're working on a lot of efforts that are heavily funded by the CMA, those corridor studies and those countywide efforts. So I would expect that in the next couple of years, you'll see that that change kind of, go back to being GMP heavy, which does reduce the ask that we have to make to the local agencies.
Chair, can I follow up on that?
Yeah.
So Matt, just so I understand that local contribution a little better. So it looks like it's primarily funded by GMP and CMA, and because those amounts vary each year, then it's really the local contribution that makes up the difference between that fluctuation?
Yep.
I mean, we come up with our overall budget needs. We get so much for GMP and CMA, and a little bit of the SCS, but basically the local contribution is you're coming to us, or
Yes.
you're coming to local jurisdictions for the balance of what you need.
The balance to an extent. So last year, so we go to the Public Managers Association for this request. And last year, because they were getting concerned about, where things were headed, they decided to cap the fees that they would be asked to contribute to, the total amount, to $1 million. So last year, we had to eat, that 471. So that's something we would rather not have to do. So it's our goal to keep the contributions around that $1 million, if not less. So basically the county was capped at $500,000 of that $1 million, and then the remaining jurisdictions fill out the balance of the 500,000. And sorry, I have a slide for the Public Managers Association where I break it down by jurisdiction, and I have it here to you, but I can just, tell you, last year the county would have been asked to pay $699, about $700,000, but they were capped at $500,000, so that's what they ended up paying. And so basically this ask this year is $251,000 less than what we had asked for the county, but ultimately 52,000 less than what they ended up paying with the cap.
So, and when you're referring to the county, I mean, that's
The
one,
county
one of the 20 jurisdictions, right? So the 19 cities and the county, right?
Yep.
Is that right?
Yep.
So the 19 cities are going to pay some amount, but the county, in that particular case for last year, had to eat the bulk of it, I guess.
Well, we didn't ask them, we capped it last year at 500,000. So,
Okay.
yeah, they would have had to pay significantly amount more.
So we ate the difference.
CCTA ate the
CCTA.
difference.
Yeah, okay.
So, yeah, and now the jurisdictions know what the maximum amount is that they would ever have to pay. So that's what they're using to budget. And then if we come in lower, like we are this year at 947, they pay the lower amount.
Okay. Thank you.
So, yeah, so if you want to see what that amount is, it's in appendix, let's see, F. Let's see.
It says
F.
estimated local jurisdiction share
Yeah,
of the
so-
CMA expense.
So that's in attachment F of your packet, of the item. And if you need to know, like, the difference between last year, I have that figure, and I'm going to take that to the Public Managers Association so they can see the exact amount of difference between last year and this year. So if there aren't any further questions, the recommendation today is you're not approving this budget, you're approving Danielle, Tim, and myself going to the PMA next week and making the request for the $947,000 and the allocation by jurisdiction that is in attachment F. And then upon their approval, we will come back to you in June for the adoption of the final fiscal year 26-27 authority budget, of which the CMA budget is a part of. So that's my ask today, and I can take any questions.
Okay, for a novice like me, who makes up the PMA?
The 19 city and town managers and then the county
City manager.
administrator. Yeah,
Okay.
it's city manager level.
All right, thank you.
So that is a good question. Whenever I saw that, Mayor, and I looked, and so I did forward this to my city manager just so she would, have some awareness in preparation. Did you have some more questions? I did have one question. I'm looking at attachment F, and what I anticipated was, Concord would pay the most because we're the biggest, and then Antioch, and then Richmond, like the big three. And in terms of percentage, and it looks like Richmond's actually paying slightly more than Antioch. So can you just help us understand how that's divided up? Because again, I would have expected it to be 1, 2, 3, and it's not like that.
Yeah, so the allocation is formula driven, and it is,
Yeah, so I'm just trying to understand the formula.
let me pull up my page. It is a combination of population and road miles that determine the allocation share. And, some cities just have a higher number of centerline roadway miles. And that's what.
I have Concord's memorized, but nobody else, so I don't know. But that's, okay, thank you. That was just a technical.
Maybe just to add on that really quick, I mean, that population lane mile formula, it's sprinkled throughout all of Measure J.
Okay.
So the way the Measure J Transportation Expenditure Plan was developed was, you take 2 billion of the generated revenue at $2,004, and that entire $2 billion was basically split among the 4 subregions by population and lane miles.
Okay.
So then the way Measure J was built was, and then each of those subregions determined, through the RTPCs, where those subregional funds, were basically being allocated. So they determined and identified the priorities, and then the CCTA board basically decided that, okay, this is now a good match of both the local need and kind of the county-wide need. And so where there was similarities, across the entire county, I mean, those categories were very similar across the entire expenditure plan. And then where there were categories that were very specific to the subregion, those were then categorized as like subregional needs, subregional categories. And so all of those things were basically developed based on population and lane miles.
Okay, thank you. And just a follow-up, because I know you mentioned 2004, and we've had 2 censuses since, if that's the proper plural. So, and obviously East County has really grown. So does that get updated? So you're using like 2020 census data as opposed to data from the original measure?
Typically, the way it works is it's the population in lane miles, at the midpoint of the measure is how the whole expenditure plan was developed. And then for the CMA budget, it's updated, right?
Yeah, we update using the DOF for population numbers.
What is that? I don't know what that is.
Department of Finance, sorry.
Okay, thank you.
And then Caltrans's road lane mileage report. So, yeah, growing areas will see their share expand.
Yeah.
Okay, just making sure you're getting.
So
your-
like, so
Thank you, I was
for
gonna ask
example.
that question.
Yeah, so for example, like, what we did with the expenditure plan, Measure J expenditure plan, we took the midpoint of the measure and kind of assumed some level of growth across the entire county, and so as we think about a future expenditure plan, we'll have to determine, how we split up the funds and how we determine those fair share and benefits, in the future when we start working on a future expenditure plan. The other thing I wanted to note on this really quick is that, getting back to Commissioner Armstrong's question about like the balance and the difference. So we, through the CMA budget, and, Matt can correct me if I'm wrong here, but we're using all kinds of different revenue sources. So there's a number of revenue sources that are coming into this, right? So we're getting revenues from the state, we're getting revenues from the feds, we're getting our own Measure J contributions, so there's all these different revenues that are coming into the CMA budget. And so from a Measure J perspective, that is coming out of, I think it's Program 18, which is the 3%. And so 3% essentially pays for a lot of our overhead, our administrative cost, relative to the lease of our building. It also pays for planning and the congestion management program. So that Measure J contribution is fixed as part of that 3%. And so what we do is, just to give you some insights, is we look at the revenue projections overall, those 3%, all the way out to 2034 to the end of the measure. And then what Matt is doing is he's making sure that, as we're implementing these programs, we're staying kind of on track with those revenue streams, because what we want to do with the 3%, and this is why this item is really important, is that we need to make sure that the ends meet in 2034. So that the expenses meet the revenue projections at the end of 2034. So that's what we're constantly looking at in all of these Measure J programs, is like making sure that we're not overspending or underspending, and making sure that we're, kind of meeting those projections at the end of the measure. So like, when we say that we eat, this like $500,000, I just want to make it really clear, it's coming out of the same revenue source. It just means that, we spent $500,000 of like a future year, which means that we have to spend $500,000 less in a future year. So I just want to make sure that's really clear, because the term eat can sound really negative, and I just want to clarify that we're not eating. All we're doing is we're kind of deferring that expense to a future year, and then we have to spend less that future year to make sure the two ends meet.
Well, and our budget has been higher in the last few years as we were doing the countywide transportation plan. So you see us, like, the expenses were going up, and now that we're starting to like ramp down on the CTP, you'll start to see the money go down. So it's cyclical in those big plans that we have to do along the way.
Yeah, so if you can imagine like a straight line, and what we're doing is like some years we're going higher, and then some years we're going lower, and some higher, and it's cyclical, to her point about the countywide transportation plan.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? No? Okay, and so you're seeking approval, and so before we have comments or a vote, I do want to see if there's anyone online, a member of the public who would like to make public comment on this.
There is no public comment.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we will bring it back to the committee. Are there any clarifying questions, comments, a motion, any of the above?
Well, I'll move to bring this to the
The PMA.
PMA. Yes.
Could you put that back up there, Matt? It would be helpful, your last slide, please, because that will help us orient what we're doing.
Second.
Okay, thank you. I will be supporting the motion, and I appreciate you walking us through this. I think that, it's very helpful to understand, the history and how the funding is allocated, because I too am still a newbie. And I appreciate that this process, it goes through, because this is a large budget and this is going to the PMA. I think that's a really good process that it was included. And I think just one question, is this also going to be at our, what are we in April? Is this going to come as an agenda item to our board meeting in April? Okay.
Yeah.
And so by then, it will benefit from having the input from the PMA as well?
Yeah,
Okay.
so we'll bring back any input they might have to the authority.
Okay, very helpful. Okay, any other comments? Okay, so we had a motion by Commissioner Armstrong and a second by Commissioner Meadows. And I'm also asked on this piece of paper here to restate the motion. So the motion is approval to present the draft fiscal year 2026-27 CMA budget at the Public Managers Association April 9th meeting. So Madam Clerk, if you would please call the vote.
Commissioner Armstrong,
Yes.
Commissioner Carlson, Commissioner Xavier,
Aye.
Vice Chair Meadows.
Yes.
Chair Obringer.
Yes,
Motion passes unanimously with Commissioner Carlson absent.
thank you very much. So looking at this script, and I do appreciate that one has been created, because I don't get this or I didn't get this at the Concord City Council, serving as mayor. So we're done with our regular agenda items, and so now we're going to move to item number 5, correspondence and communications. Do we have any correspondence or communications?
We did not receive any.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner and staff comments. Says chair's comments. I don't have any other than thank you for helping me to make it through my first meeting as chair. Thank you, everybody, for your grace. Any other commissioner comments? No? Okay, how about staff comments?
No, please, Danielle. Go for it, Danielle. Because you probably talk less.
I was just going to say that we have quite a number of large plans and items coming up over the next couple of months. So hopefully, get a kind of deep dive into our CTP. Our ITP will be coming back. And then we're going to be doing really a lot of deep dives into our programs in the May board workshop. So I hope that we'll be explaining a lot more about the plans and programs that we're working on and what's coming up. And feel free to reach out to me or any of the staff at any time with questions on any of this stuff.
Thank you. And I do appreciate Danielle reached out to me and said, you're going to be chairing this committee this year. Why don't we meet? And I was like, really? Why? And now I understand. We met, and she is very helpful. And yes, so I appreciate that offer. I am taking you up on that. Okay, so we've gone through commissioner and staff comments. Any other business? I don't know what that category is, but it's on here.
No other business.
No other business.
Okay, all right. So with that, we are adjourned to the next regular meeting for May 7th at 1:30 p.m. Thank you all.